So how's your week been?
It's been pretty good. I'm not gonna lie, it's definitely had its ups and downs, for sure.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna tell you, on the days when it's sunny and 80, which has been primarily most of this week. Today it's pretty gloomy out, but and I'm able to get on the bike, get on the Harley. That is, I mean, you want to talk about a crystal clear mindset by the time you hit work, or you hit your next your next place or objective. Yeah, it's I don't know, it's therapeutic for sure.
Yeah, no, I get it. And I'll tell you, I've had the same kind of week. I've had some amazing highs and we've had some real bad lows. But yeah, when you've got that, you know, when you have that release of being able to go out and, in your case, ride the motorcycle. In my case, my wife won't let me ride a motorcycle, and I can tell that story later.
I
Um,
can't wait.
yeah. There's a lot of things I don't get to do because her brother is a badass, and so uh, but I have the Jeep, and so we took the top off. I left the doors on because it's going to drop down to 40 degrees on Monday.
Yeah.
So I think the gloom you're seeing will be here tomorrow.
Well,
Um,
I gotta say I'm not too disappointed about that, because that means it'll be leaving us.
yeah,
So
well, yeah. So the motorcycle story, we had never actually talked about it, and my neighbor in college was selling his motorcycle. He was broke, needed to pay some bills, and he had a really nice motorcycle that he was willing to sell for $1,500. I mean, he'd taken really good care of it. And I'm like, I don't know that I could pass this up. This is a great deal. And I jump on it. I'd never ridden a motorcycle before, and he's like, "You've ridden one before, right?" I'm like, "Of course I have." And so I think he could tell that I hadn't. So he's like, "Okay, so it's just like every other one you've ever ridden. Here's how it works." And he starts telling me how to. And so I just took off.
you're
And
like,
yeah, and so I just went for a ride. And in this was in Kansas, and in Kansas there's no helmet law, and so I'm out there just loving life. So then I take it to the house, and I'm like telling my wife, I'm like, "Yeah, look at this. I'm gonna get this boat." And she's like, "Yeah, no, no, you're not." And so we've had a couple rules in our marriage, of just, things are good as long as you don't do these things. And literally, it's like there's two or three things on that list of things that just absolutely annoy or freak out the other person. And so she said, um, this just isn't going to work if you're ever going to ride a motorcycle. And I'm like, I don't understand. Why are we living in fear? So then,
yeah.
so then she tells a story about how her brother, on the farm, was riding his motorcycle and or doing dirt bike or whatever it was. Could have been a little mini moped. Who knows? But the cousins were running behind him, throwing wooden eggs at him, and it was a farm, so they had wooden eggs to help with the egg population.
I'm so glad you clarified that, because I had no idea. I'm like, I'm just gonna wooden eggs. I'm gonna roll with it. I don't know, but thank
Yeah,
you for
so
that.
apparently it's like a psychological trick or something that they put them under a hen, and it convinces the hen to lay another one. I don't really know. I probably wasn't paying that close attention when my father-in-law was teaching me.
I gotta be honest, if I was a hen, I would probably have fallen for it. I'd be like, oh wait, there's one, there's two. Right.
Yeah. And so he's riding away, and the way that the two of them tell the story, they're much better telling the story. But apparently her memory that's seared in is him riding the bike with a big old smile on his face, and he has a gigantic smile. And then smack, he runs into a trailer, breaks his collarbone, wipes him out. And so because of that event, I can never ride a motorcycle.
I gotta tell you, oh, my clavicle, it hurts a little bit just hearing that. Like, but I can, but this, I mean, you know how my mind works. Like, I'm already painting
Mm-hmm.
a picture, and I'm
Oh
already like,
yeah.
oh my gosh, we could make this into a story. But
Yeah. Well,
I'm already thinking about just, yeah, oh,
yeah.
oh shit, boom.
Yeah. Well, so we talked to him about it. on Easter, we had a video call with him, my mother-in-law, my nephew, my wife, and my kids. And we were talking about that story. And of course, he was like, "Yeah, I didn't see it coming," and he barely remembered it until she brought it up. And he's like, "Oh yeah, yeah, I remember that." And so there's a bunch of things I'm not allowed to do because of life events that my wife had. And some things I can still do, but she just doesn't like it. She's not comfortable with it. And my Jeep was one of them. The story behind the Jeep was I had a Dodge Ram for a long time. And then towards the end of, it wasn't last year, but the year before, truck prices were through the roof
Oh
because
yeah.
the chips were missing. And so I was able to trade in my Ram for more money than I owed on it. I'm like, this is great. And so I ended up getting a Nissan Pathfinder. And I learned a lesson. Don't buy a quality foreign car from a Dodge Ram dealer. Um, because they didn't even clean the car out. Like nobody had looked at the car. And so I get the car, and it's a longer story. It took a while for me to get the car because they did have a title for it. I'm like, how can you sell a car without a title? Like you don't even own it. And so when I finally get the car, I open it up and I'm like, you guys have had this thing for like months just sitting in the back lot because I paid for it. And there's glitter in the back of this car. So I don't know who owned the car before me, but I'm guessing, use your imagination. And so then I drive the car for 1 week, Trevor, 1 week. And I don't like to park where there's oil spots because I'm paranoid that they're mine. Well, turns out they were mine. And so I take it back to the dealership. I'm like, it's leaking badly because my driveway was perfectly clean and now it's ruined because of this. And turns out it was missing some stuff. And the parts, it took them 6 months. They were waiting for parts. Finally, they came back to me like, okay, so the best thing we can do is give you aftermarket parts, and we're sorry about that because we don't like to do that. Or you can just come pick something else off the lot. Well, I've been driving by the lot, looking at the car that I can't drive, and I've seen this Jeep sitting there, and I'm like, I'm so tired of. I'm in rental cars all the time because I travel, so I always have something brand new, and I'm like, I get in, I'm like, okay, how do I start this thing? How do I put it in gear? And like, why can't we just go back to the simple basics? Like, what have we done wrong as humans that I can't jump in a car, turn a key, put it in gear, and drive it? Because all these warning labels, and that they're enhancing these things because someone did something stupid somewhere.
It's like a cockpit. You're like, all right, engine, check.
Yeah.
Light. Oh, nope, not lights. Wipers, check.
Yeah. So I get in this thing and I'm like, this is perfect. There's not even a radio. Like it has a radio, but it's literally the old fashioned FM AM radio. I'm like, this is great. No bells, no whistles, nothing can go wrong with this. Now, I did not research Jeep culture before I bought this Jeep Wrangler.
A rough
Turns out,
ride.
yeah, well, they break down all the time.
Oh,
And so now I've been fortunate. What has gone wrong, I've actually been able to fix, and I am not a mechanic. But so I bring this thing home, and I'm so excited. And my wife is like, "No," and I'm like, "What?" And she's like, "The kids I went to high school with, they have these, and you get in, and they just smell." And I'm like, "What?" And sure enough, she jumps in, and she's like, "Yep, there it is. That's a smell. It's like a tractor smell." And I'm like, so I went and bought air fresheners, and things are good. We have a Jeep, and we took it off roading one time, and I spent more time cleaning it afterwards than we spent off roading. So I was like, well, she's a concrete princess or a pavement princess, whatever you're gonna call it.
were you guys
So
like, as you are, did she go with you off roading?
yeah, we went as a family,
We're like,
completely naked,
John,
doors, roof,
John, this is
everything.
great. John, I'm so glad we chose John. I love doing this. John.
Yeah. So but she's a worry wart too. So like we're out and it's a stick. So yeah, I'm actively engaged with driving over all these obstacles and you're about to tip over and it's people are out there and they're broken down, they got flat tires and things have gone wrong. And she's looking around going, all of
Why,
these things can go wrong.
why John? Why?
Mm-hmm.
Look at me, John.
Yeah.
When we get home, I swear to God.
Yeah, so there was no pressure from anyone in the family because when we got home, we were covered in dust, and it just the thing was filthy. There's still dust in it. And that was last summer. So, but it is a blast to drive, and to the point how we started down this path is, it's going to be a beautiful day here in Michigan, and today is the last day that I'll. Well, maybe tomorrow. We'll see if I can drive it without the top on tomorrow, but I will definitely have to put the top on it tomorrow night or Monday morning before the new week starts.
Right
So
on.
because I'll tell you what, the heater in that thing is horrible. And during the summer, I was testing it out. I'm like, oh, this is great. We're gonna be able to have the top off until like November.
Right.
Nope. Like the second the temperature goes below 70, it's like you're in a freezer. Like it is so cold. So anyway.
I gotta tell you, one of my favorite things about it, so how you tell stories, I absolutely love because of the details, but I also love how you pause on your enunciation. So like when you're like, nope. I'm like, got it. That's awesome.
Yeah, I've gotten that a few times. So it's I guess we went down that rabbit trail because we both had some ups, some downs, but we
Yeah.
had that stress relief of just get out and for me it's feeling the wind through my hair. I know you have the same thing.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Just
Mhm. Yeah. So yeah, but other than and I will say it's professionally it's been the ups and downs. Personally, life is just on an even keel.
yeah.
It's when you get that news that is outside of your control and it's crappy news and you're like, well, now I got it. But I mean, that's what I do. I'm a problem solver. I've spent 30 years solving other people's problems.
Right.
And so when these things do pop up, it's I don't know if I told you this, but about 2 years ago, I made a career shift. And it was a shift I had been working on for a while, but uh, I went from the retail side of final mile logistics to the third party side of final mile logistics. And so I went from a major retailer to a independent contractor. And it was a change I had been trying to do for a while, but because of who I worked for, I couldn't get hired in with any third party company because they all wanted me to hire them.
Okay.
And so it's been professionally, I've had to learn a lot about the business, and I'm fortunate that a relationship I had started, probably 15 years ago. They took a chance on me, and then they're like, okay. And the cool thing about it was not only did they take a chance on giving me a shot in an industry I really had no experience in, but they also said, we don't care who you bring to the table. So
Nice.
whether your former employer comes and hires us, or we don't care about that, we'll give you everything you need. We just need your attitude, your work ethic, and so that was neat because everyone else in the industry who wanted to hire me would have been, well, you have to bring a book of business.
Right.
And so it's been a hell of a ride because I don't take loss very well. I don't take failure very well.
Same.
I get really really frustrated with myself.
Yeah.
And so we had some things that happened about 6 weeks ago that didn't go the way I thought they were going to go, and I really took it hard. Now I'm beating myself up over what could we have done better. And it's interesting the different dynamics. The CEO of our company, he was calling every day to check in on me. You doing okay? You're working through this. And my immediate supervisor, my boss, he has more of my attitude of dust yourself off and get back in the game, cut it
Right.
out. And so I've got the two different perspectives where the CEO is calling to nurse me along, and then my boss calls and says, all right, enough of this sulking, get your head back in the game, or I'm going to fly there and kick your what. And I'm like,
Right.
all right, I got it. And so, we had that about 6 weeks ago where like, that came down. And I think, we've talked about this before where things happen in your life and they're happening on purpose
Right.
and they're happening to get you ready for other things. And quite frankly, I think if that thing that had happened 6 weeks ago hadn't happened, I wouldn't have been ready for this week. And what happened this week is going to impact what happens over the next 6 weeks. And, so my reaction this week was, I called the CEO and I called my boss and I simply said, here's the decision that was made. Um, I will be on the ground on Tuesday. I'm going to have a plan, and this plan is going to cover the next 6 weeks of how we're going to react to this. Um, and I think across the board, it was emotionally for me. It was crushing. It was news I didn't want to hear, but I think that we're going to be stronger because of it. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, I keep going back to playing in my head some of the, some of the stories that I've written, and the word, the battle plan, that word keeps, that keeps popping up in my head. And it's, I mean, it's obvious in anything, in anybody's life, in anything we do, curveballs are going to come at us, right? We can be on the path and we're like, yes, this is what's going to happen because I have planned for X, Y, and Z. So because I have planned and because I've been so diligent in execution, this has got to be the end result. It's got to be the outcome. And then we're going along. We're like, yes, box check, box check, box check. Curveball. What the
Mm-hmm.
shit just happened, right? So
Yeah.
what matters then, and I love the fact that you say, like, I have the mentality, I get myself, get up, dust off. Okay, here's the deal. Let's get down to brass tacks here, right? I did not foresee that coming, and then it did not go the way that I wanted. Okay, so to your point earlier, I'm going to go back to my control circle and I'm going to go, okay, what can I do? What impact can I have? What is in my spectrum, right? What's in my range? And when we slow down, and brother, I'm guilty of this, like was guilty of that this week, right? So, when we don't slow down, we're going, oh man, okay, well, I don't even know. Oh, I might as well just throw the notebook, the rule book out the window. This is just, and chaos ensues. But when we take a breath, go on a Jeep ride or whatever it might be, and kind of rewind and go, okay, let's look at this from another angle. Maybe we're even asking for other people's input. Like, okay, this is through the lens of which I'm viewing this. And right now it's pretty dark and dismal. Somebody else might come along and go, oh, okay, but what about this? And you go, oh, well, shit, that might work. It might come together. So then we start to calm down. We go back to our control circle. We slip right inside, right, those boundaries, and we start to go, okay, got this here, got this here, got this here. Let's reconvene. Let's come back. Okay, and now let's write another battle plan, and let's take next steps. And all too often we spend, and once again, super guilty, all too often we spend so much energy on the panic and the disappointment, and that energy could have been utilized to, we lose time, right? We lose traction. That energy and that time could have been, could have been focused on, being more prepared for the next, whatever the next thing might be, and preparing for that. So yeah, spot on.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, what's interesting is I don't know if you suffer from this as well, but I can stand back and be the observer to other people's dilemmas and be, for me, when it comes to problem solving, I've tried to describe this to others before, but I don't know how it happens and I haven't studied the psychology behind it. But um, what I have found is when I am dealing with some kind of a crisis, I am able to slow down the events. I've never had that experience where I said things just happened so fast I didn't know what to do. I've been in situations before where it's been there's a potential for a catastrophic loss. And for me, I'm able to analyze and assess very quickly. And so when that thing happens, specifically for other people, if I'm watching their situation, I'm able to stand back and say, okay, you got this. What do you want? What is the desired outcome? Let's think about what our goal is.
Right.
How do you want to respond to this event because of that?
Yep.
And it's so much easier for me to guide them through it. And then, when I get hit with that curveball,
You're like,
yeah, it hurts my feelings. I'm like, oh, like I don't get panicked and like make irrational decisions, but like I get so vested in the good of the world that when something bad happens, I'm like, wow, like like my feelings are hurt.
yeah.
And it's and that's where I struggle mentally to say, dust yourself off and get going. But Trevor, I could look at you all day long and say, hey man, dust yourself off, you're gonna be fine, get back in the game. And it was funny to me because when I hear the bad news and it starts raining down the emotions of, oh man, I what I find myself doing, and this week was a great example of it, where I really just stepped back and said, okay, I have debated and debated and debated. I've offered different solutions, and the choice that was made is not in alignment with any of our values, but I have no control over the person making the decision, and they don't want to hear me. And the best thing I can do is just formulate a plan to say, okay, if that's what you choose to do, I'm okay with that. I don't agree with it, but I respect your decision, and this is the path I'm going forward. And it's what is the emotion is not absent. It's there, but it's just the rational thought process has to kick in, where I have to say, I can't control other events. And so I told you last night through a text that I was struggling because I was running behind this week because of these other events.
Yeah.
And I wasn't able to keep up with all the things I promised myself I would do. And so, Trevor, there was a moment last night where I was sitting there and I I had my thought process, I had my motivation, I was in my zone, I'm just writing away. And I think I was down to like the end of page 2, which usually is my kicker that you're going the wrong direction. Nobody wants to read that much stuff. And because I don't double space it when I write it. And so I don't double space till I post. And I get all the way to the end and I'm like, I think I have gotten my point across. And I deleted the whole thing and started over. And I went with, you obviously you saw what I went with. And it was, I'm not going to spew what I think on anybody today. I'm going to just stand back and listen and hear what other people have to say. So, but what is cool to me is when I ask those questions. So this morning at 5:30, my phone lights up with text messages. I'm like, what is going on? And of course, I'm in logistics, so I'm thinking, oh, something's wrong. Somebody didn't show up to work. We're dropping loads. And no, sure enough, it was the vulnerable text of, hey, I saw your post. I'm not going to post publicly, but I needed that this morning because I was in a bad spot, or whatever their situation was. I don't want to give too much away because it was private, but
Right.
yeah, it was interesting to me. I didn't see that coming in. It's funny how those curveballs just come at you, where you think you've got something going one way, and then it completely goes the other way. So anyway.
Well, and so now look at it, right? Look at where you sit right now. Take the moment that you are in right now and think about, rewind. If that hadn't happened to you, would you be impacting the people that you've impacted the way that you have? It would be totally different, right? Yeah. So you took something that was a curveball that kind of knocked you off your rocker, right? And came back, actually had something, because your mind still might have not been true north, might have been on tilt a little bit, right? I don't know which way I want my hand to go, but right. So you're like, oh, Yeah, that looks good. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. That's what I want to tell people. Yeah, they need to feel this. They need to know
Mhm.
what I went through. They need to know why I'm hurt. They need to know all of this. So you just have it. And then you look and you go, oh, that's not a good idea. Deleted. And
Yeah,
you come back with maybe less emotion, more thought process, and you put something out there that people grab onto and go, wow, like that. To your point, I needed that, John, to the point where it hits them so right here, right? It hits them so hard or in a way that they don't want to don't want to post it publicly. They want to reach you personally and say, listen, because you said this, this is how this has impacted me, and this is how my train of thought is now going, and this is how I'm moving forward. And that right there, that puts that good that we talk about right back into the world. It takes something that might have taken us and not felt good and taken us off of course a little bit, but we're able through a process, we're able to through a battle plan, if you will, we're able to take that, formulate it, and put it back out into the world as good, as something positive that other
hmm
people can feed off of. So it goes to show that through the things that we experience as leaders, just as humans in general, there's that underlying there's a silver lining in there that we can try to find, because our knockback might end up being somebody else's gain. There's a lesson in
yeah,
there, right? There's a lesson in there always.
yeah. And that's exactly my theme. My theme is look at how I did this. Some of it was good, some of it was bad,
Right on.
and learn from it.
Yep.
Yeah. Um, so just out of curiosity, the I saw that the the video I loaded with Terry, the author of Goopy Ghost.
Yeah. By the
She
way,
she
love that name.
yeah, I know. Um, so she had some really good insight on publishing, which it's completely different from the other authors that I've interviewed who have said, and I think the reason for it is they had they were not writing their book from a profit perspective. They were just writing their book because they wanted to get their message out there.
Right on.
So it was interesting to me, and obviously the intellectual content is different.
Yep.
The other authors that I've interviewed about this, they're not writing about their own ideas. They're not writing about their own creations. They're writing about things that are already out there and other authors have written about a million ways. They're just putting their spin on it. So I understood where Terry was coming from because this is something that she invented and has lost some rights to it. Um, but like in your case, that's where I would feel like if I were in your shoes, I would want to protect that because what you're writing, what you're creating, you're inventing. I don't feel that way about what I'm doing. I feel like I'm taking theories from other people and sharing examples of real life leadership. I don't feel like I've invented anything that I write about. I'm just writing. So it was interesting. I was curious. I know that you've got some things in the works, uh, and have you given any thought to what that next path forward is?
Yeah, so right now there's a couple things. When you talk about creating something, my mind is just, I don't know, I don't know, there's a little kid living up in here, right? I'd
Mhm.
say probably about 7 or 8 years old, just typing stories away. So right now I've got a rough draft. I've got a children's a kid's book, probably I would say aimed at the 8, 9, 10 years of age, based off of Terrific Trevor and Mighty Mo, two main characters, and this one there's even Steven the Seagull. So, but they got a rough draft created. I've got that out to some people, yourself included, kind of looking it over, reading it with their family, waiting on some more critiques to come back. Once that happens, I've got a couple recommendations on a graphic artist, put that out there and see what comes back, and then we'll go to move to publish. So that's that. And obviously Terrific Trevor, I know all of those things are mine. So in the meantime, working on making sure that I get those trademarked, and those names and those everything that those belong to me, and those storylines. The arena and the warrior and things like that, you've got Gladiator, you've got movies, those storylines, you've got games, right? Those storylines, I'm not so concerned about, because in the big spectrum of things, the things that are very, very personal to me would be the Terrific Trevor posts. Savage Reflections also, those deal with comic book characters, which like Ghost Rider and Wolverine, which obviously I do not have the rights to. I just talk about them and put my own spin on them, right? So once again, not worried about that. But going back to the Terrific Trevor and the captain and the crew, the pirate ship and things like that, the crew and the captain and those stories, those are mine. That's not Pirates of the Caribbean, it's not any of the other stuff, right? Black Flag or Black Sails or whatever the shows that you've seen, those are my creation. So also making sure I take steps to make sure that those stay, those stay safe or mine. So yeah, in the meantime, you asked about kind of next steps, the kids book, but I'm also working on, and this is hard, this is tough for me right now, working on a book, and I don't know right now, it probably will be called I Hate a Bully. And it's based off of the series on LinkedIn. I think it's up to 7 or 8 one, I think, the seventh post, I believe. And in the book, will be things shared that won't be I won't ever write about on LinkedIn, for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's hard to write about, and number two, I don't want to. So I'm just going to keep that in the book, and that deals more with some specific events that happened while I was in high school, and that were just really, really tough to deal with. So yeah, but moving forward with that. So that's slow writing, but we're getting there.
No, I think you're going the right path, and the main reason for this is, you and I have both ventured down in the past week or two the path of Gumroad and Substack and potentially publishing works
Yeah.
for monetization, and that is one of the challenges that I've been struggling with. Is everything I've written so far I have shared for free on social media, and there'll be a transition where at some point I will share it on Gumroad. And here's how I'm going to break it down. The stuff I've been sharing on LinkedIn is shorter stories, and that will go to Substack, in my opinion, because Substack is kind of that shorter post format.
Yep.
And then Gumroad is more of the longer, essay style ideas. And so I think that's what I'll end up doing is the stuff that I put on Gumroad for paid subscription and Substack for paid subscription, I will end up putting on LinkedIn as either an article. Gumroad will become an article, and then the Substack will become the post.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably a path I'm comfortable going down, because I think that I have enough material. I think I did tell you I talked to a couple publishing companies, and the feedback that I've gotten from them is just give us all of your writing, and we will put it in a book format and come back to you with some edits. And of course, they want a healthy chunk of change to do that. I'm like, well, I don't know that I need that, because I've been vetting this on social media for a while.
Right.
I've had plenty of feedback about my writing. My wife is amazing at telling me what I do wrong. So, I think that's the path I'm going to go down. I will, because I have all the writing at any point, I could bring it all together into a book.
Yep.
And I'm saving it off in that way so that it's kind of broken down by subject matter, by period of my life of when it happened. Um, and but I there is some editing I do have to do because I've point blank named some people, and if I don't have their permission to use it, then I have to go back and change the names. It's
Right
so
on.
it's a bit of a process, but yeah, that to me, I think you're doing the right thing by getting copyrights on some of your ideas, and then moving forward. I'm really excited about what you have in the works, and I cannot wait until you have a broader audience to present that to.
Yeah, no, I this thing kind of, I appreciate that, John. And this, it kind of, it took off when I when I started leadership coaching and thinking about how I wanted to approach, how I wanted to approach people in general or leaders in general, right? I found through, you find your niche, you find your voice, as they say, and I found that storytelling, that was what really got people to talk, to kind of, if I opened up a little bit more, so did they, right? The comfort level came up and like, hey, look, okay, trevor's trevor's talking about bullying and how he got bullied. You know what? Been there. Here's what I experienced. Here's how I dealt with it. Here's how I came through the fire, right? So I, through that, and then just the absolute love for painting pictures with words, I just started slapping stuff on LinkedIn and then utilized taking that and saying, look, use today's story. And today's drop, actually this morning, was right on, right? I did my first YouTube video, and oh man, that was like this. But there's a lesson to be learned there for a leader or just humans in general, and how we can begin our journey as a warrior, as a leadership warrior. And so I want to be able to connect with the audience and make them feel, while they're listening, that they're actually in that, actually, or listening or reading, excuse me, that they're actually in the story. They're right there. Like, oh man, I can feel it, right? I can feel what's going on around me. Because when that happens with me, oh brother, I soak it all in. It's all in here, and then I can't get it out of my mind. And then if I can't get it out of my mind, I gotta put it down, right? I gotta put it down, and then I start to look at ways that I can apply it in my daily life. And that,
Yes.
brother, that right there, you want to talk about an end game? That's the end game. To make it so that people have something that they're able to apply in their own personal life, and as they do it through their actions, boom, right back out into the world
Mm-hmm.
for the positive.
Yeah. So wait, what you describe, obviously you know that that's how my brain works because I've shared that with you.
Yeah.
But it's what's interesting is, I think that there's a lot of people like that, and that's the audience that I cannot wait until they connect. And I think a lot of them have because I can see it in their comments when you post something. But when you talk about that in my mind, it's funny because like my wife goes all in on everything she's watching, and like there are some things I disconnect from. So if it's super gory, super bloody, horrific, I'll just disconnect from it, and my wife can like feel that pain, and I will say to her, it's just a movie, it's all fake. And she's like, but that can really happen. And it's funny when you tell that. That's in my mind. That's where I go. And I'm watching the people who genuinely connect with everything, and it's kind of a cool feeling to hear you talk about it.
Yeah. Well, and I'm glad I'm first of all, I'm glad that is the way you feel. And I've been asked, several people have asked and said, kind of going back to your old trademark thing, but um I've asked, like, where do you come up with this stuff? Like, like what novel are you reading? Like, where are you taking that? Is this from a comic book? Are you just taking some pieces and you kind of put a few words here, right? And this is all me. Everything that I write, the things that I write about, this is me. I don't create my content. I don't pre-create my content. I create it in the moment because that's what works for me. And 99% of the time, it's at the gym. That's my sanctuary. I'm there
Mhm.
at 4 a.m. I try to make sure my drop Central Standard Time. I try to make sure that my drops happen around 5:30. Sometimes I miss it, but it's it's in that moment. It's in the moment when my mind is the most clear. And to be fair, John, that's the moment when my mind, not only is my mind the most clear, but that's when the shields are down, the walls are down. Like I'm just like this.
Mhm.
Here's Trevor. And I haven't always been that way. In fact, in very last year or two, right? 3 maybe, I don't know. But it's at that moment that I start to go, what's really impacting people today? And I can go through people's posts, right? What are people talking about? What are people experiencing? The news, right? Horrible shit, right? The world,
Mhm.
right? Mayday. So what can I right? What can I do? What can I say to grab the people that just might happen to scroll by and go, listen, here's a part of me that just might help or connect a part of you. And
Mhm.
if you just happen to feel like I got my 2 mitts, but I need something in them to swing so I can topple some giants so I can get to the next step, then that's what I want to provide. That's what I want to get you to see. I feel that too often we walk around with fog over our eyes and or blinders. We're just like, I mean, I can't do it. There's no way that I'm going to be able to put my first YouTube video out there because I'm going to look foolish.
Mhm.
Who cares? Who
Yeah.
cares? Do it.
It's funny because I have some folks who provide routine, consistent feedback, and and I think that it's honest feedback because they genuinely want to see me succeed.
Right on.
But then, I look at it and I'm like, I'll watch other people's stuff and I'm like, oh man, they're so professional with their videos or whatever. And what I think I said this when I was talking to somebody this past week. Um, I just want to be known as authentic. I don't want people to see a flashy me. I don't want people to see an edited me. Yeah, exactly. I want
That's what I
because
am.
and that is, I think that's the following that I've built on LinkedIn. And so Trevor, I want to offer you some advice on this because if you go out there and you listen to any of these YouTube experts, they're going to tell you that you've got to get a subscriber count, and you've got to get a watchtower count. And so here's what I did. I went out there and I said, okay, I have 53,000 followers that, based on the data LinkedIn shares with me, at some point throughout the course of a month, they're active on my posts. A lot of my stuff is slow burn, where I put it out there, and 3 weeks later, I'm getting comments and feedback on it. And so I know that my content is reaching the target audience, the people who want to see it. And that's the key. My target audience is anybody that wants to read my stuff.
Amen.
And so I'm watching the YouTube channel, and I'm not seeing the subscriber count go up, and I'm thinking, oh man, this could be a huge failure. Well, then I stumble upon the data page that says, hey, here's how your page is actually trending. And what is interesting to me is I have another YouTube page that I've had for years, since you could have a YouTube page, and I've got all my kid videos on it, and it's all family stuff. And I subscribe to like 200 other people on that channel. And that's the YouTube channel that if my wife or kids turn on the TV, that's the one that they're going to go to. And I've told you before, my wife and kids don't pay attention to anything I do, so I know that they're not going and watching my videos. But my stuff is starting to populate there. I'm like, oh, that's interesting that if someone subscribes, they do see my stuff. So I find this data page, and it was in the first week that this happened, where I'm like, oh man, I think I had 20 followers at the time. And then I'm getting hit by all the people on LinkedIn who sell their service to get you followers, to get you watch hours. I'm like, that just seems dirty. I want people to watch it because they want to watch it. I don't
That's
want to pay.
cheating. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, no, I'm good. And so, I fired back at a couple of them. I said, show me some proof that number one, this works. Number two, it's not wrong. And of course they can't. They're like, well, everybody's doing it. And I'm like, are they? And
Yeah.
so, but then I found my watch hours. And after 1 week, Trevor, I had over 700 watch hours. And I'm like, how is that happening? And so my advice to you is don't pay attention to your subscriber count. Don't pay attention to how many times the video has been watched. That only shows you how many times one person has watched the video. So if I go and I watch your video 5 times, your watch count only goes up by one. But you posted, I think, a 20-minute video yesterday. If I go watch that video 5 times, you get 1 hour. Yeah, I'm not good at math. Sorry. I just proved that. So
Me neither. I'm horrible.
Anyway, so
Is that a
like,
half?
yeah, you get credit for the time I've actually spent watching your video. And so, then I started looking deep into the data. And the cool thing is, it's the interviews and stuff that I've done. Those are getting watched by people. And some of those are 20 minutes, some of those are an hour. And, so that to me is the sign that people are taking the time to watch my stuff.
Right on.
It matters. And that's
Yeah.
what I want you to pay attention to, because I think that if you do more stuff like you did last night, I think you're going to get the audience that you're looking for. They're going to tune into it. And I texted you that I wanted to try the podcast format. I might try to do that today,
Nice.
just so that I can see, because I think what it's going to do is, if you subscribe to YouTube, you can just listen to it. So you can pull it up on your phone, lock your phone, put it in your pocket, and listen to it. I'm sorry, if you pay for the subscription to YouTube, you can do that. If you just have a YouTube channel, when you hit that lock button, I don't know if it's the same on iPhones, but on Androids, if you hit that lock button, the video shuts off. So you actually have to leave your phone unlocked to watch the video. So I'm curious if the podcast feature on LinkedIn allows people to just listen, not watch the video. So I'll let you know what I learned from that.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, I'd be interested to know on how that plays out for sure. And
yeah.
Go ahead.
The only other thing I was gonna say is I did buy into. There's a couple folks out there that sell a product. Here's how to get more YouTube followers. I won't say it here because I don't want to. I don't ever want to publicly say anything bad about anybody. But what I will tell you so far is, unlike Justin Welsh, these other people who are selling these products, so far they're on this side of the spectrum of scam meter. They're not. I haven't learned anything yet. All they keep telling is it's hype videos. It's one hype video after another of, stay tuned and I'm going to tell you what this is about. And then they talk about something else. So they stay tuned because I'm going to tell you about this. I'm like, you son of a gun, you got me on clickbait.
Yep.
So,
yep.
So I would stay away from those products right now.
Will do.
And I didn't pay a lot for it. I think I paid $27 for one. And I'm like, I told my wife, I'm like, yeah, I paid $27 for some tools that are going to help me increase my audience. And now I'm like, yeah, no, it's nothing. It's a bunch of crap.
Well, I appreciate the heads up on that. And I think one of the, I got some feedback last night from a friend of mine on LinkedIn who I very much admire. And his comment, he actually broke down, when I was asking for his feedback, he broke down another story, a historical story, into different segments. And he's like, hey, try this. Shorten up, maybe, you had 20 minutes. That's not bad, but maybe shorten it up a little bit. And then I got some feedback from another friend of mine on that, but shorten it up and then hit 3 major points. So, tell a part of the story. How can it apply to leadership, or how can it apply to you? Tell the second part of the story. How can it apply to you? Third part of the story, boom, how it can apply to you. So yeah, as it's a refinement, right? It's a work in progress. But the the one thing that I always want to keep consistent is somewhere in there, somewhere in that message, or excuse me, somewhere in that video is going to be some kind of story.
I agree with that feedback. That's a good idea. And one of the things that I did learn from this class I paid for was they do break it down, and you can actually see the chapters when you hover your mouse over the timeline of the video. You can see how they've gotten it broken down.
Okay.
I don't know how to do that yet, but that's going to be one of my goals over the course of the next couple of weeks is to learn how to do that.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah. And they place like commercials or ads in those spots, and so maybe that's how you do it.
Okay.
Once when I figure it out, I'll share it with you.
Oh, please do. I greatly appreciate that for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So what does the rest of your weekend look like?
Well, it's rainy and stormy here, so I'm gonna guess there will be not a whole lot of Harley riding going on. So probably just some housework and more writing on
Good.
the I hate a bully book. The other thing too is just you continuing to work with clients on coaching, and then also just obviously some self-analysis, making sure that how I'm approaching clients as a coach is the right way, that I'm battle planning correctly and things like that. So very, very, very I want to make sure that I stay very aware of my approach always, because as we're talking to, as you talk to different people, you've got your approaches, you got different personalities, right? You've got to make sure that your approach is spot on for the specific person you're talking to.
Yep.
So a lot of that, and just plugging away, brother.
Cool. Awesome. Well, I hope that's a productive weekend for you, and more selfishly, I hope that it's an inspirational weekend for you because I'll look forward to reading what you write.
Hey, absolutely, man. That's probably not probably, that's one of my best times of the day is, getting in like I said, in the gym in the morning, and then just letting the thoughts flow and letting it rip. I did like, it didn't get a lot of interaction, but I did like going out into the audience on LinkedIn and saying, hey, for those of you that followed me, for those of you who haven't, you should go all the way back and read some stuff, right? But for those of you that follow me, like what did you want to hear? What do you want to hear most about tomorrow on the next day? Like what's really hitting you? And it was really neat to see people come back and go, freedom, like how you talked about the Harley, how you talked about how you felt, right? Riding with the gods and the goddesses on the highway, things like that. Want more of that. So, but yeah, it's every morning's a different journey. Every up here, different picture being painted. That's for sure.
Yeah. Good. Cool. Well, I appreciate you letting me get into your calendar today.
Hey, no problem. I'm so glad that you took the time, and Jon, you're always welcome. And I absolutely love the conversations and the interaction. And I cannot thank you enough for, your continued support as always.
It's my pleasure.
All right, brother.